What's up, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we will be covering our second conference, going through every Power 5 conference in college basketball with some players to watch from each team. Today, we have the Big East Conference. And yeah, without further ado, let's hop right into these players. First up for Butler, it is going to be a returning player in Jalen Jackson. Unfortunately, he only played 6 games last season for the Bulldogs as his season was cut short with season-ending ankle surgery last season, but he is going to be returning to Butler this season. I think he's going to have a much larger role than he did in his small sample size for last season. Last season for Butler, he averaged 9.5 points, 3.5 rebounds, 4 assists, and over a steal per game, shooting 51% from the field, 40% from three on a small sample size, only 58% from the line. But he was a really productive player at Purdue Fort Wayne. I really like his game there. In 24-25, he averaged 19 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, 1.6 steals per game, 48 from the field, 26% from three, and 75% from the line. He's a really strong physical guard. He's a good two-way player. He can defend at a high level. He gets to the basket a lot. He can draw contact, get to the free throw line. So I think he's going to be really good for Butler this season. And the Bulldogs did lose a lot of production this offseason with Finley Bizjack transferring away, Michael Ajayi graduating, Jamie Kaiser's no longer there, Johan Traore. So yeah, I think it's going to be a good season for Jalen Jackson for sure. Next up for the Creighton Blue Jays, I'm excited to see Jackson McAndrew, another player who was injured for most of the season last year. He missed pretty much the whole season with a foot injury. He only played in 4 games last season, and he only averaged 7 points, 31% from the field, only 29% from three. But I definitely think he's a lot better than those numbers. In his freshman season, he played in 36 games. He averaged 8 points, 4 rebounds, shot about 40% from the field and 35% from three. I think he's going to be a really good shooter, and I think he's just going to fit well, in the Creighton's offense. He knows how to play the game. He's a smart player on both ends of the court. And he kind of just, knows where to be, knows when to kind of pick his shots and everything like that. So I definitely think he's going to be, a really solid contributor for the Blue Jays this season. They are returning a couple of guys from last season, like Austin Swartz and Jason Green, as well as Isaac Trout as well. But they are losing a lot of production with guys like Josh Dix and Nick Graves not being here for this season. They did add a couple of, pretty productive scorers in Wes Ennis from South Florida and BJ Davis from San Diego State, as well as incoming top 100 recruit Cottrell Harmon. So I think the Creighton will definitely be a solid team in the Big East this season. And I think Jackson McAndrew is in line for a pretty big season for the Blue Jays, and I'm excited to see how he can recover off of his injury-prone last season. Next up for DePaul, I'm really excited to see Magoon Gwath play for them. He's transferring from San Diego State. Last season for the Aztecs, he averaged 9 points, 4 rebounds, and 1.5 blocks per game. Shot 52% from the field, almost 44% from three, and 61% from the line. The season before, in his sophomore year, he averaged 8.5 points, 5 rebounds, and 2.6 blocks per game. So I'm hoping he can get back up to some of that production and rim protection with the Blue Demons this season. And DePaul has, a ton of transfer, a lot of, guys coming in who weren't here from last season. They got Kamari Holmes from Wofford, Corey Cotton from Texas Rio Grande Valley, Ade Popula from Tulsa, as well as some other guys. They are returning a couple scorers like Layden Blocker and Cruz McClure from last season. So going to be definitely interesting to see what head coach Chris Holtmann can do with the squad. But I definitely think this is a good kind of building block with Magoon Gwath. I think he's got a ton of potential, hoping he can put on a little bit of, size and strength. He's got, great length and athleticism. But I think, to take that next step, especially on the offensive end, he's definitely going to have to put on a bit more weight and be a little bit more physical. But I'm definitely excited to see what he can do in the Big East for DePaul this season. Next up for Georgetown, I'm excited to see what Jalen Lowe can do for the Hoyas this season. Last year at Kentucky, he was also one of those guys who was pretty injured, and it just didn't really seem like the right fit for him, and just definitely had like a down season last year for the Wildcats. He only played in 9 games, only played in 18 minutes per game. He averaged 8 points, 2 rebounds, 2.5 assists, only shooting 36% from the field, 21% from three, and 70% from the line. However, the season before at Pittsburgh, he averaged 17 points, 4 rebounds, 5.5 assists, almost 2 steals per game. Still inefficient, 38% from the field and 27% from three, but he did shoot 89% from the line on over 5 attempts per game. And I think that's definitely the player that the Hoyas are going to get this season. I would expect him to be, a lot more productive in Georgetown this season. And, having lost a lot of production for Georgetown last season, like KJ Lewis, Malik Mack, Jeremiah Williams, Deshaun Harris Smith, pretty much like all of their top scorers except for Caleb Williams are leaving and will not be here this season. So I think Jalen Lowe can kind of step into that starting point guard position and really, make a difference for Ed Cooley and Georgetown. I think he's going to have a nice bounce back season. He's a really quick player. I enjoyed watching him at Pitt a lot. I thought he was, maybe even draft like an NBA draft prospect after his sophomore season. So I think if he could just, stay healthy and just, be a little bit more efficient shooting the ball and make slightly better decisions with the ball in his hands, I think he can be a really productive player for Georgetown this season. Next up for Marquette, another returner here in the Big East is definitely going to be their sophomore guard, Nigel James Jr. He was absolutely incredible in his freshman season for the Golden Eagles. He averaged 16 points, 3.5 rebounds, 5 assists, and 2 steals per game, shooting 47% from the field, 35% from three, only 69% from the line on about 4 attempts per game. So definitely want to see that percentage go up. But overall, he was, unbelievable. And I think, he's just in store for another big jump this season, especially without Chase Ross in the backcourt as kind of his counterpart. I think Nigel James is going to, take over that true number one option and number one creator, ball handler, doing a little bit of everything for Marquette and head coach Shaka Smart there. They also are returning a couple of solid players like Royce Parham, Adrian Stevens, and Demarius Owens. And they're getting a couple of impact transfers like Nolan Minnesal from St. Thomas, Minnesota. He averaged 20 points a game for them. And Sanada Frew from Louisville. They're also getting a top 100 recruit in Alex Agbono. So I think, Marquette is definitely going to be in line for, a solid season in the Big East. They have, a lot of, players returning, which obviously helps in, the modern college basketball game, a little bit more continuity. And I think Nigel James is in line to be, definitely an all Big East type of player, maybe even an all-American caliber player. I think he's going to be that good this season. So I'm really excited to see what he can do in his sophomore year. Next up for Providence, I'm excited to see Miles Byrd for the Friars this season and new head coach Brian Hodgson. And I think, Byrd, after the 24-25 season, I thought he was going to go to the NBA draft. I was really high on him as a prospect. I think, he's a really good player on both ends of the court. So he didn't really have the season that probably he was hoping for last season for San Diego State. He averaged 10 points, 5 rebounds, about 2.5 assists, 2 steals, and 1.2 blocks per game. So you can see his impact defensively. But he wasn't very efficient shooting the ball, only 40% from the field, 31% from three, 80% from the line. But, definitely want to see him be more efficient, especially from three. I think that's kind of what's holding him back from being in that kind of tier as, a draft prospect. If he can be more efficient from three, I definitely think he has a chance to get drafted in maybe a little bit of a weaker draft class this upcoming year. But I think for Providence, obviously with a new head coach, there's a ton of change. They're basically only returning one guy in Ryan Mila from last season. They're losing Jalen Sellers, Jason Edwards, Stephon Vox, Jameer Jones, Corey Floyd Jr., basically their entire team. But they are bringing in a lot of talented transfers as well to go alongside Miles Byrd, like Ryan Sable from Buffalo, Devin Vanterpool from FAU, and Malik Mack from Georgetown. to name a few of them. They're also bringing in Dink Pate from the Westchester Knicks, so that's modern day college basketball for you. But I think Miles Bird is definitely going to be a really impactful player for first year head coach Brian Hodgson, and yeah, I think he's going to have a really good season for Providence. So I'm hoping that he could be a little bit more efficient as a shooter this season, but I definitely think he's going to be an impactful two-way player for sure. Next up for Seton Hall, I'm excited to see Texas transfer Simeon Welcher, who's coming over from the Longhorns. This past season, he averaged 6 points, about 2 rebounds, 2 assists per game, shot 37% from the field, 34% from three, and 92% from the line, which is definitely very encouraging. He played in 36 games. He only started one. So I definitely think, he's in line for a bigger role. And I think, just more playing time and more shots could definitely lead to, higher shooting percentages. And he was a really highly ranked recruit coming into college out of New Jersey. So coming back to his home state, maybe he can um, be a little bit more efficient, better as a shooter. He's a really talented player. He's a pretty solid defender too. So I think he's going to fit in with head coach Shaheen Holloway really well. The Pirates are also, basically have a whole new roster this season. They have a ton of transfers to go alongside Wilcher, like Dell Jones from Radford, Kareem Thomas from Dartmouth, Rodney Brown Jr. from Loyola Marymount, Roddy Anderson from Xavier, Devin Williams from FAU, Chris Nawuli from Rutgers. So, yeah, a whole new roster for head coach Shaheen Holloway. But I definitely think Simeon Welcher is capable of having a bigger role, and I think he could be really good for the Pirates this season. Next up for St. John's, it definitely has to be Tunde Yesufu, who was in the draft process basically up until the deadline where you could, withdraw. He decides to come back to school and transfer to head coach Rick Pitino and the Red Storm. So I definitely think he's in line for a really big sophomore season. Last season at Baylor, he played in 34 games. He averaged 18.6 rebounds, 1.6 assists, 2 steals per game, shot 47% from the field, 29% from three, and 75% from the line. I definitely think, that 3-point shot and being more consistent is probably what, ultimately held him back and what made him want to come back to school, to hopefully improve that and, bump his draft stock up this season. And I definitely think he's capable of doing that. But, Yesufu is a really strong athletic wing. He's a great, two-way player. He's a great athlete, and I think he's going to be unbelievable for Rick Pitino this season. The Red Storm are bringing back Ian Jackson from last season, and they're bringing in a ton of transfers and international players. Unfortunately, one of the big ones that they brought in, Donnie Freeman from Syracuse, I believe tore his Achilles and is going to be out all of this season. So that is definitely a big hit for them. But they are bringing in, I think like 5 international players or something like that. I think someone from the G League as well. But I think Tunde Yesufu is definitely going to be the star of this team. And hopefully, he can improve his draft stock to maybe even be a potential lottery pick in the 2027 NBA draft. Next up for the UConn Huskies, I'm really excited to see Najee Hines, who's transferring within the conference from Seton Hall. Maybe a little bit of an under the radar pick just because his probably numbers weren't as high. But last season for Seton Hall as a freshman, he played in 31 games. He only played in 18 minutes per game, averaged 6.5 points, 5.5 rebounds, and 2.2 blocks per game, which was unbelievable in only 18 minutes. He shot 60% from the field, 69% from the line. So he's definitely, a dominant paint presence. He's a really good athlete, really strong, runs the floor well, and he's an unbelievable rebounder and shot blocker. His per 40-minute numbers would have been 12 rebounds and 5 blocks per game, which was just incredible stuff there. And I definitely think UConn is going to be one of the top teams not only in the conference but in the country once again. Obviously, with head coach Dan Hurley, they're always going to be competitive, but they are returning a lot of guys like Braylon Mullins, Silas Demery, Jaden Ross. Solo Ball is definitely a big hit as he's going to miss this entire season as he will be redshirting, trying to heal an injury. But they're also bringing in Nicholas Kamenia from Duke. They're bringing in 2 top 100 recruits in Colbin Landrew and Junior County. So yeah, a lot of talent coming into UConn, and I definitely think that they're going to be one of the top teams. And I think Najee Hines is definitely going to be a big part of that this season. Next up for Villanova, a player I'm really excited to watch is Devin Royal, who is coming in after playing 3 seasons at Ohio State. This past season, as a junior, he averaged 14 points, 6 rebounds, 1.6 assists per game, shot 48% from the field, 32% from three, and 80% from the line. I think Royal is a guy who can do a little bit of everything. He's a pretty good facilitator as a forward. He's got good size at about 6'6", 210, 215 ish. So he can pretty much play, any forward position. He can guard probably like almost 1 through 5. I would say he's got, that versatility on that end of the floor, and he's a really physical player. He can score in the paint. He has the ability to space the floor, although I would like to see that 3-point shot be a little bit more consistent. But I think he's going to be a really solid player for Villanova, who did lose, quite a bit of production from last season with Duke Brennan, Bryce Lindsey, Caden Lewis, and Devin Askew all not being here this coming season. They are returning. Tyler Perkins and Matt Hodge is definitely going to be key guys to bring back. But they did add a lot of talent in the transfer portal, like Jake Fegan from Cornell, Daryl Simmons II from St. Bonaventure, Elijah Crawford from UIC, Kwame Evans from Oregon. So yeah, definitely a lot of talent coming into, Villanova and head coach Kevin Willard. But I think Devin Royal can really be, a productive player for them. And I think he really fits what head coach Kevin Willard is trying to do there. And lastly, for Xavier, I'm really excited to see Chance Westry, who is transferring from UAB. He started out his career at Auburn and then transferred to Syracuse, but never really found his footing there just due to injury, just not really getting consistent minutes there, but had a really productive season last season for UAB. He averaged 15.5 points, 4 rebounds, 5.5 assists, 1.3 steals, shot 49% from the field, only 24% from three, and 71% from the line on 6 attempts per game. I think Westry can do a little bit of everything. I think he's a really, solid player on both ends of the floor. He's got great length. He can handle the ball. I think he can be a solid shooter, but definitely going to need to see that 3-point percentage come up a little bit more from where it has been. And I think Xavier can be really, productive in the Big East this season with, new head coach Richard Pitino now. And they have a lot of guys coming in from the transfer portal. A couple of guys returning, like Jovan Milicevic and Gabriel Pizzato, who didn't play last season but averaged 15 points per game in Evansville in 24-25. I think he's a really good player for them. They're bringing in Mike Nwoko from LSU, True Washington from Miami, Ruben Dominguez from Texas A&M. They got a couple of incoming freshmen as well. So I think they're going to be a really productive team. And I think Chance Westry has the chance to kind of be the engine and, really big creator for them and the Musketeers this season. So, with that being said, that is going to be it for me today, everyone. Thank you all so much for watching. Let me know in the comments who you guys are excited to see from these Big East teams. If you guys are fans of these teams, if you think I missed anyone who I was talking about, or if you think you're excited to watch another player on their team, let me know in the comments down below. But yeah, thank you all so much for watching. If you did like this video, please make sure to like, subscribe, and comment, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace.